Well, welcome to our very own last crescendo of the daily Fight Night podcast here from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The morning, very much the morning after the very long night before. Gents, Spencer, Oliver, John Rawling, we witnessed two very interesting heavyweight fights last night for different reasons. Let's start with Joseph Parker and the man Bakole, the man from Congo out of Ethiopia on his journey, getting here on fight day, one of the most extraordinary 11th hour comings, if you like, ever in a heavyweight title fight. Spence, you first. Winners and losers in that fight last night, Parker and Bakole?
Well, listen, I think that Joseph Parker, he had to deal with a late change of opponent, and he dealt with it, and he was, the ultimate professional in doing that. He went in there and he done a job, and he done it in fashion. I think the disappointment for this is Martin Bakole coming in at lastminute.com. We all know that Martin Bakole is the danger man of the division, the most avoided man of the division, and we thought with him accepting that, with sort of 24 hours to go, he was at the airport with 24 hours to go in Congo. He had to go on some mad journey to get here, and you think he's not in shape. But we know he's a dangerous guy, and for 6 rounds it could be a dangerous fight, but we didn't know what sort of shape he was in. But you think with him taking that calculated gamble, when in the position that he was in, that fight with Usyk-Dubois in May in America for the final eliminator for the IBF title, you think he must be in some shape because he's putting a lot on the line here, because he's going to get his shot. Usyk-Dubois he was a big favourite in, and Bakole's a dangerous guy. He turns up straight away. I think, John, you said to me, you looked at him when he got in the ring and went, he looks terrible. You know, when you see him stripped down and he's got his shorts on, you go, he looks in terrible shape. And you're still in the back of your mind going, yeah, but he's a dangerous guy. And it was a terrible decision for me to allow him to go into that fight. In retrospect.
He got a lot of money, didn't he? I mean, he came in as a late substitute, and he's obviously been paid well. It was presumably so much money that he couldn't afford to give it away, and he's a professional fighter, so I suppose you have to respect that. But from a career perspective, I agree with Spencer. He's put himself out into the wilderness now, and it's difficult to see where Bakole goes as anything like a credible heavyweight force.
Yeah, I think it was a gamble that didn't. It's backfired on them in many ways, because he was the most dangerous guy in the heavyweight division. Like you say, now he's in limbo. I spoke to Andy Lee and Joseph Parker in the aftermath, and this is what they told us. I haven't got Joseph with Andy Lee. Andy, how relieved and pleased are you about that?
Pleased, and not overly pleased that we got the win and the fashion that it came in, but it's a bit of an asterisk for me, because I'd like to fight Martin when he's fully fit and have a great battle with him. You can see how good he is. I feel sorry for him. He's at a huge disadvantage, but full credit to this man. He took it, he made it really. He made it that way. He was just too sharp tonight, too fit, too sharp.
Joseph sacrificed a lot and put a lot at risk there. Should he get the world title next?
Yes, sure. Faega, Keane, Wilder, Zhang, Bakole. Who else is there? Who else is there for this man to fight? He's done it all. He deserves the world title now. Give him his chance. He's fought everybody. He said no to nobody. He's turned down nobody.
Joseph, you're very pleased about that?
I'm very pleased, happy, got the win. Now I want to go celebrate with my team and enjoy this victory.
World title next?
Yes. Anyone, yes, that'll be awesome, anyone.
Congratulations, mate. So Andy Lee and Joseph Parker very happy with their night's work. Don't get paid for overtime. Did a great job on Bakole. He doesn't lose anything, but he hasn't had a title fight, and he's not lined up for a title fight next.
No, you feel sorry for him, don't you? Because, he's there for that IBF world title, and it was his big moment. He's worked hard to get back there. He was champion back in 2015, 2016, and it's been a long roller coaster of a journey for him. We go back to 2022 September when he got knocked out by Joe Joyce, and you think this is the end of the road for him at elite level. And he rebuilt, and he come back and beat Zhang and beat Wilder and put himself back in a brilliant position. They was buzzing for this fight. I spoke to him earlier on in the week, and they were so up for getting this opportunity just to be taken away. And he goes in there defending his WBO interim title. But now you go, where does this leave him now? Where does he go from here? Where does he fit into the picture? Because you sort of feel for Parker, don't you?
He's treading water. He's treading water
No, but
again.
after the Wilder victory, when a lot of people had most people had wrote him off because we didn't exactly know what Wilder had left, and he went in there and he met fire with fire, and he absolutely bashed Wilder up. You go, he deserves his shot.
Yeah.
And he was left in limbo. I spoke to him, Gareth, actually, and he said, you know, he didn't know what was going on. He was coming over to Saudi. He didn't know when he was going to come back in the picture. So I do feel for him.
John, I've got to bring in here, Agit Kabayel put in a fantastic performance against Zhilei Zhang. One of the obvious things that we've talked about off-air is that Kabayel and Parker might now be made. It's a fight that works, doesn't it, in your mind?
It's a very difficult fight, I think, for Parker, and it's a fight which kind of is a treading water kind of fight. You know, I feel for the guy because he was in terrific shape for this fight over here, which should have been against Dubois. And suddenly he looks at it and he's no longer heading for his world title fight. I mean, people looking at boxing from the outside will say, what on earth is all that about? Surely he should be the one who gets Dubois in May and not Oleksandr Usyk. But we know how boxing works, and I guess Kabayel is an easy fight to make, is an obvious fight to make for Parker. But from Parker's perspective, is it good? No, it's not.
Well, what do the fans want? Do they want great fights, and that is a great fight, or do they want the title fights? I think poetic justice is that Joseph Parker gets a world title fight next. Unfortunately, let's just watch this clip. We spoke to Oleksandr Usyk ringside. He's got itchy feet, wants to get back into camp, and he wants Dubois. Who are you going to fight next? You.
I think it's Dubois.
And it will be May?
I don't know. It's deal for Aegis, His Excellency, how the time, I don't know. I'm ready.
Are you ready to go back into camp again, yeah?
Yes, of course. I'm back Kiev. 2-3 weeks I was in Kiev. Then I go to my camp.
So guys, Spence first, then you, John. It looks like, and it's sad for Parker again, it looks like Dubois and Usyk might meet for a second time next.
Yep, strong rumours circulating that will be the fight next for the undisputed again. I mean, look, guys, we waited, 25 years when we had Evander Holyfield, Lennox Lewis before we got that undisputed title fight. That's how often they come around. And Turki Al-Sheikh wants to break all these records and reinvent boxing in many, many ways. And he wants that undisputed title fight, and that does look likely next. And you got to feel for Joseph Parker in this situation, because what will happen now is they'll put Joseph Parker in against Kabayel for a fight really with no meaning at this stage, because you don't know if there's going to be a rematch.
Other than it's a great fight.
No, other than it's a great fight. I mean, no meaning for Joseph because he's just treading water when he should have had his shot, you know, but it is a great fight. And I think that also Turkey's, he's been very vocal about wanting to make these modern eras the best fighting the best, and it doesn't necessarily mean that there has to be titles on the line. So you understand it from that point of view. I suppose the fans are the winners, because Kabayel versus Parker is one of the best heavyweight fights out there right now.
Yeah, but how do you sell it?
Yeah, you sell it on the undercard of the undisputed.
Yeah, sure, you can do that, but are people going to be walking around talking about Parker versus Kabayel as a potential heavyweight
It's an undercard
clash?
fight. It's a co-main fight, isn't it?
Parker should be in a main event.
What we should clarify as well, on the night I spoke to Robert Smith about the situation for Daniel Dubois. I know there's conspiracy theories this week that he was pulled out deliberately, but this is what Robert Smith told us about Dr. Neil Scott and the examination of Dubois on Thursday. What was the process that happened earlier on the week that had Daniel Dubois withdraw from the next fight that's about to take place?
Yeah, quite simple. He didn't feel very well. They went to go and see Dr. Scott, our Chief Medical Officer. The doctor found him, so he wasn't fit to compete. He's all sweaty. He obviously has an infection of some sort. There's a few more tests to be done, but he wasn't fit to box.
Because you can find boxers with stitches in their head that they won't tell you about. They'll try and still fight. But obviously you've erred on the side of caution here. Presumably had a temperature, he needed to take medicine, and your prerequisite is the safety of the fighters.
Yeah. He wasn't fit. I mean, it's as simple as that. You can go into it as much as you want to. The boy wasn't very well, and it was the right thing to do to pull him out.
So conspiracy theories are ridiculous about this, yeah?
There should be no conspiracy theories. Daniel was ill. He had all the symptoms of being ill, but a qualified doctor said he's not fit to box. He's not fit to box.
So bottom line, guys, let's just map out the rest of the year in our view in the heavyweight division. I'll start with you, John. How do you see it?
Well, it's going to be Usyk versus Dubois, isn't it? I mean, we can absolutely guarantee that. But
Parker fighting the winner?
Yeah, probably. I would think that's likely. But I mean, what reason is there, apart from him battering AJ, to believe that Dubois is going to beat Usyk? In my opinion, he was well beaten by Usyk first time around, and I don't see a lot of reason to believe that it's going to be very different this time.
So does Parker maybe get the undisputed shot?
Well, I don't think it will happen, if I'm totally honest.
Where will he go then?
I think we get Parker, obviously. The roadmap that I see for the upcoming heavyweight title fights is, I think that we get Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury. I think we get Parker versus Caballero. I think we get the undisputed fight with Daniel Dubois versus Oleksandr Usyk.
But who fights the winner of that?
Yeah, no, and then you move down and you get Fabio Waldy versus Moses Atoma, and then the winner of that breaking through as well. But who fights the winner of that? It has to be Joseph Parker.
There you go. For me, it's absolute as well. Let's move to light heavyweights, guys. Two incredible fights, the magnificent 7 fights, if you like, top to tail. Two brilliant light heavyweight fights. You said it last night, Spencer. The fight between Callum Smith and Joshua Buatsi, one of the greatest all-British fights of all time.
Yeah, totally agree with that. You know, we opened the show with an incredible light heavyweight title fight and finished it with the incredible light heavyweight title fight, didn't we? I mean, the light heavyweights there stole the show, but Callum Smith versus Joshua Buatsi. You know what I loved about the fight? People had wrote Callum Smith off. Maybe we're guilty of that as well, because we talked about it, John, off air, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
The desire maybe had left Callum Smith because of the career that he had and the path that he had gone on, and you wondered when it got down to it and he had to bite down his gum shield and grit through that and play that, that psychological battle in that contest, would he have the mental strength still to do it?
Well,
and he proved us he did.
You looked at who'd got the most miles on the clock, who was the fresher fighter. And I think by common consent, we thought that man was going to be Buatsi. But, at the age of 34, Callum Smith produced something that I didn't think that he still had. That was one of the outstanding performances of his career, to rank alongside George Groves. He was brilliant last night.
That's arguably the best performance of his career. We've always said about Joshua Buatsi, has he got that other gear? He was pressed to that last night. But what Callum Smith's got, both very similar fighters in lots of ways. They break their opponents down. But what Callum Smith did last night, I thought brilliantly, was show powerful tensile strength and the creation of the angles he went for against Buatsi. And he didn't expose Buatsi because it was an incredible fight, but he just showed that he had more in boxing skills as well.
Yeah, I think I found a lot more out about Buatsi last night, is that he showed that he's got minerals, he's got balls, that when some things were getting tough, he showed that he can actually bite down his gum shield. There was times in that fight when they were both hurt, really hurt, and Buatsi more even than Callum Smith. There were times there where you thought, he's nearly out here, he's going to check out, but it's somewhere, he was finding it from somewhere and turning it around and turning the fight on his head and putting Callum Smith under pressure. That is, and I agree with you, John, one of the all-time great, not just light heavyweight title fights in Britain, but all-time British fights.
Gents, let's move to the main event of the night. It was the main event in the promoters' eyes, but in the fans' eyes, maybe it wasn't. The mainstream sports fans don't really know Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol. Notwithstanding, it was another extraordinary 12 rounds from both of them. You said it again off air when we were coming home last night at 4 a.m. They didn't show pain. They were both hurt during that fight. They both have incredible poker faces, great skills. Bivol was brilliant last night in stepping it up, even though we had Beterbiev winning 7-5. It was incredibly close. Obviously, it was a drawn fight on one of the cards, wasn't it, as well? So we get...
I had it level as well.
Yeah, you did. We get a third fight now between these two. When will these guys ever be known by the mainstream sports fans?
Listen, we're the only winners, aren't we? And I think that, when performances like that, we go back to October in that fight, we thought you couldn't better that. That was the best fight in boxing, and they both delivered. Well, guess what? They bettered it last night. I think that was a better fight this time. Both guys, Dmitry Bivol, credit to him. He done what he said he was going to do to me earlier in the week, where he said, I'm going to meet fire with fire, I'm going to take it. And that's what he'd done, and that's what he needed to do.
And we thought he couldn't.
And that, yeah, exactly.
Well, but most people thought he couldn't.
We remember going back, Morales against Barrera, that didn't have a huge crossover appeal.
No.
People who really knew their boxing knew that they were two of the best fighters around, two of the great featherweights of all time, and they produced a trilogy which has cemented them into the history of sport. And I think that these two now are doing exactly the same. And okay, they might not be talking about it as they walk down Regent Street on Monday morning. You know, this isn't one which is going to be having
they'll be talking about Dubois pulling out,
crossover appeal. But I think that people who really know boxing will look back at these fights in years to come and say, yeah, these are two to rank us alongside the all-time greats.
Two other things on the card. Hamza Sheeraz may be getting a home decision. Frank Warren revealing to us that he'd hurt his hand during the fight. I think he was very fortunate to get a draw against Carlos Adames, who fought a great fight on the night, a very tactical, technical fight.
Yeah, listen, I thought that Hamza, you know, we love Hamza and we love the journey that he's been on so far. And look, he'll come back, and I think he can come back better and stronger. And it's sort of, it makes sense what Frank Warren was saying with Frank when you spoke to Frank, and Frank was saying he hurt his hand early in the fight because it was a negative performance. He was boxing,
very subdued.
Yeah, he was boxing on the back foot, and I've been in those positions in fights before when your hands are hurting, and every time you punch, it feels like someone's sticking a knife in your hand. It's like the pain is excruciating, and I think that sort of makes sense to me because Sheeraz was negative at times. I mean, he was very fortunate to come away from a draw there. I think we had him well behind on the scorecards.
8-4 or 9-3 in rounds.
Absolutely. We had him well behind on the scorecards, and he considered himself fortunate. The boxing gods were with him. But he can go and right the wrongs of this because there's another fight there for him in Carlos Adames in that rematch to try and claim that WBC title. But it was a below-par performance from Hamza Sheeraz, and I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, can he come back? Can he get the win? And I think from what we've seen there, I think that's a very real question, and I really do wonder if he's capable of doing it. Listen, I love Hamza. I think he's a great guy. I think he's good for the sport, and at his best, he can look very impressive. But it might just be that the style of Carlos Adames is all wrong for him, and whether he ever beats him, that remains to be seen.
Let's have a little listen to what Frank told me ringside after Hamza's fight. I've got to ask you about Hamza, who we all love, but he looked to me in a very difficult fight tonight.
He broke his hand. I mean,
do you know what round he broke his hand in?
Very early in the fight. I don't know if they told me it's 3 or 4, but he busted. I mean, you can see it. He took his glove off. He's busted his hand, and I could see during the fight. Normally, he's very sharp with his right hand. You know, as he lets it go, and he just weren't. He was sort of putting it there rather than turning his shoulder, and obviously he couldn't do that with his hand. But then he tried that. You could see in the 11th round, and 12th round,
And he was definitely more subdued than he normally is.
And I went round to the corner. I said, "You've got to win these last couple of rounds." One of the judges scoring. It's like a broken record now these days. I mean, was he give it?
8 at 118, 110 to Adames. We had it for Adames over on our side of the ring.
How many?
By about 6. But listen, he's your guy. You're always going to support him. Yeah, it was what you liked in the fight as well. But Hamza, like you say, came through another battle, another travail with the broken hand, like you say, from early in the fight. So fought 8 rounds with a broken hand.
And the thing about him as well is that from a weight perspective, he looked really drawn. I think he's really, you know, you've got to look at the sides of him, the height of him. I don't know how he makes the weight, and I think we may have to think about that as well.
Well, finally, guys, as we're looking at winners and losers on the last crescendo, our final knockings. Josh Padley, putting solar panels on a roof in Doncaster 5 days ago, gets the call, can you fight Shakur Stevenson for the WBC lightweight title? He goes 9 rounds, he gives as good as he gets for 8 rounds, he fights back, he loses virtually every round, he goes down 3 times, reportedly earning $500,000 for the contest. What a prize for him. Knocked down 3 times in the 9th round and stopped. Yet he almost got carried out of the arena on the shoulders of fans, and Shakur Stevenson booed. Talk about being a loser but being a winner.
Heroic performance, you know, and that's what boxing's all about, giving that kid the opportunity, and he got that opportunity coming off the back of that win against Mark Chamberlain in September on the undercard of Anthony Joshua versus Daniel Dubois at Wembley, where he was a huge underdog. He went in there and performed, and that's what it's all about. And I think it's a lesson for not just all the young fighters out there, but all the fighters that are even in title contention right now. Martin Bakole even.
I was about to say, be ready.
Absolutely. You have to be ready because opportunity knocks, and when you get that opportunity, you have to grab it with both hands. He went out the winner last night. It was a moral victory for him there, John, because he was in for a pound-for-pound start. Yeah. And let's have it right. He's considered British title level at
4 levels above.
Absolutely.
Shakur.
It was an incredible performance.
Yeah, Shakur, I suppose you look at that and you say he was a little bit disappointing. He should have won more impressively than he did. But, I mean, what a performance. And when he goes back to work, he's going to be a hero around Doncaster forever, isn't he? People are going to look at him and they're going to say, remember when he went in against one of the outstanding boxers of his era? And remember what he did? He can come away with that with so much pride. And the people in Riyadh, in that audience, recognise what he gave. Such bravery. Incredible.
Stevenson, booed by the fans. He's developing that relationship with the fans that Floyd Mayweather once had, which was people said he was boring. They wanted opponents to go in there and try and knock him out. Remember the Maidana fights and all these contests where fighters, Shane Mosley, Andre Berto, they all said they were going to go and knock the boring Mayweather out, but they couldn't. That's developing for Shakur at the moment, isn't it?
Shakur's that, he's for the boxing purists, the sweet science, and he's very difficult to beat, and he does what he has to do, and he sticks to his game plan, and some people will find that boring. In the world that we live in today, people like entertainment, people like to see people going in there and leaving it all on the line. Shakur's not that guy. He is very similar to a Floyd Mayweather in his early days, and maybe he doesn't have the firepower to take a fighter out. We saw the shots he was hitting Padley with, and Padley was gritting his teeth and hanging in there. So he's one of those guys that you've just got to appreciate for the sweet science of boxing. And if you do, you're going to know that this kid is one.
Floyd was aggressive in his early career. It was that middle career when he stopped doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, but Floyd's different to Shakur. People comparing him and Shakur. Look, Shakur is of similar stature, and he's one of the pound-for-pound stars now. Floyd's an all-time great. There's a difference. I think that, you look at Shakur and you go, he's a great, great fighter, but you have to appreciate it's a niche market out there for his
People
style.
think there's something missing.
I know what's missing. Putting him in with Gervonta Davis. That's what's missing. That's the fight I want to see.
That's exactly right.
Make it.
Well, we're just about done here. The watchword from this week is be ready. We're ready now to go home. It's been great in Riyadh. The brilliant last crescendo event. Watch back the whole broadcast if you want to, all 6 hours, 54 minutes of it. We had a blast. You might even watching it back. It's been the Fight Night Daily podcast. Spencer Oliver, John Rawling and myself, Gareth A Davies. We'll see you on the other side.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.